Hello everyone, and welcome back to TowerGate. It is day 59 of TowerGate, May the 1st, 2017. Not a whole lot going on today, but we'll go ahead and cover what we got here. Of course, this week is when we begin the hearings that have been pretty much on hold since Nunes had to step away. That kind of threw everything on hold. Then they went on Easter break. So now they're back, and the hearings will resume this week. Now, as we've been talking about the last couple weeks, watching events going on behind the scenes, we know that both the House and Senate Intelligence Committees have been saying that the FBI is stonewalling, not giving them the documents they requested, while at the same time the public relations people at the FBI are stating that they're fully cooperating, sending the documents requested. We also know that in the past couple weeks that there doesn't seem to be much interest anymore in any of this these hearings or the investigation, because you had really, again, three investigations going on. The overall Russia interfering in the election, which is tied to the hacking of the DNC and the DCCC, which is now up in the air because even the group that CrowdStrike conducted the analysis of the servers, they're backing off from that now. The FBI wanted to look at those servers on multiple occasions at multiple levels, according to James Comey, and they were denied. So the whole issue of even the hacking itself is now coming into some question. However, I don't expect either the House or Senate will push on that at all. Then we had the issue of whether or not there was collusion between Trump and Russia. Again, that was a lot based on the dossier, which we have now completely taken that apart. And we know pretty much that the dossier was a bunch of garbage. It was completely unverified, and that should lead both houses, when they're doing their interview of Comey, to try to find out more about that. Now, I understand that when he appeared before the hearing last time, and 100 times he would not answer questions, I understand that when they had that little closed session with him, that there was... Now, this is leak stuff, that question was pursued about whether or not he based the FISA warrant, which he sought and Attorney General Lynch signed, whether or not it was based on what we now know is unverified and fraudulent dossier. Comey stated that it was only part of it, that there was other things. Now, if Comey is trying to tell them that his other sources were these FBI agents that were feeding information to him who were stationed in Rome, Italy, well, that was Christopher Steele. The same guy who gave the dossier to John McCain, who gave it to Comey, was Christopher Steele. Christopher Steele was also the person who gave the information to the FBI agents in Rome, Italy. So the source is exactly the same. So it'll be interesting to find out whether or not they press James Comey on that, as to his other sources. And I expect in an open session he's not going to talk about it. And as far as what his response was, if in fact it is true that they pressed him on that issue in the closed session, they have not talked about that. But again, that would get us closer to finding out the truth. And as I've stated, I don't think that that's the intention of the House or the Senate. I think they want to put on a little dog and pony show, gain some political points against their opponents, and make this all go away. So anyway, this is kind of what we have going on. So tomorrow, Tuesday, James Comey and Admiral Rogers will be appearing again behind closed doors with the House Intelligence Committee, and hopefully we'll get some information about the questions that I just talked about, because I would think that that's certainly some of the questions that they'll ask, and I would certainly hope that they'll ask Comey if he knows anything about, or Rogers if he knows anything about, how BuzzFeed came into possession of the dossier. Then we have on the 8th, we have Yates, which I assume is what, next Monday? Yates, Clapper, and Brennan will testify in front of the House Intelligence Committee a week from today. And that will be an open hearing. Of course, Sally Yates is an anti-Trumper and was one of the people trying to sell the collusion story. We'll see how that goes. Clapper and Brennan have both denied it. Now we know that Brennan is up to his eyeballs and running his own little operation out of the CIA. and this surveillance was surveillance where there were no FISA warrants sought. It was just the CIA doing what the CIA does, illegal spying. We'll see how hard they press Brennan. I don't expect very much. On Wednesday, day after tomorrow, Comey will then be going over to the Senate, and he will be testing in open hearings in the Senate. So he's in closed hearings tomorrow with the House, open hearings on Wednesday. And Charles Grassley is a guy to watch in the Senate side. He's probably the only guy on the Senate side who might actually ask some tough questions. And he wasn't very happy with Comey's performance the last time he was over in the Senate answering questions. And Grassley is stating that unless he gets some actual answers to his questions, that he may place some Justice Department nominees on hold. In other words, he's not going to cooperate with James Comey getting some people sworn in and into their jobs unless he comes clean and starts answering some questions. So that appears to be where we are this week in TowerGate. As I said, we've been talking about the last couple days, especially in the last couple videos. I think Trump and his lawyer are just going to sit back and keep their powder dry. They're going to allow the dog and pony show to happen in the Congress. I don't think they have any realistic expectations that they're actually going to try to get to the bottom of anything. And I think that they're going to be watching the civil case down in Florida with Mr. Gubarev to see what happens there. As you know, it's my opinion that because that case is primarily about financial damages, money that Gubarev says he lost as a result of his name being leaked in the dossier by BuzzFeed. He claims he's lost a lot of money, so he's looking for money. So I think it's very possible we could see that case be settled out of court. Will never go to trial. They'll have a big money settlement. Gubarev will get millions of dollars, and he'll go away. I think that Trump and his attorney are watching very closely to see what happens there, because the same questions that Trump and his attorney want to ask are the same questions that Gubarev wants to ask, or his attorney. So I think that they're just going to take their time. I don't think they're in any major hurry. I think they're just letting things play out. And I think that ultimately that's what Cohen and Trump are waiting for, is to see what happens in the civil hearing down in Florida, and also to see what they do in the House and the Senate. I'm pretty sure they don't expect much to come out of that. And then if all that doesn't produce the results that they want, I think they'll go ahead and file their own civil suit against Christopher Steele and BuzzFeed. And they won't be looking for money, obviously. They're looking to get the truth. Who leaked that complete 35-page dossier to BuzzFeed? Very important question. Who were the donors that Glenn Simpson went to solicit to continue the opposition research on Trump? And for Mr. Simpson, it was purely money. Of course, he doesn't like Trump and was trying to stop Trump. But for him, he had been raking in 12 to 15 grand a month plus expenses from a big league Republican donor. And of course, they might be wanting to find out who that person was as well. Also, on another note, John McCain was asked about his role in giving the dossier to Comey, and McCain has said that he'd be perfectly willing to testify in front of his own committee and at the House and tell them exactly what he did. He says there's nothing to hide. As we talked about yesterday, he went to with his right-hand man, went to a function in Canada, and that's where he was told about the dossier, and he told his right-hand man to go get it in London, which he did, brought it back, gave it to McCain. McCain gave it to the FBI, to Comey personally. So McCain says he has no problem talking about how he passed the dossier on to the FBI director and how he was turned on to it. So anyway, I think Trump and Cohen are going to keep their powder dry, let things play out, and then if the civil case doesn't move forward, then I think that they'll file their own civil case and they'll try to get the answers to these questions. But we still have other people that need to be questioned. We know that Susan Rice was responsible for the unmasking. We still don't know what role Valerie Jarrett played in it, but sources, unnamed sources, have leaked over the past few weeks that she was the central figure and managing, like the central controller of all of this that was going on. And of course, Brennan has a lot of questions to answer as well. So anyway, I think this thing is going to play out the way, again, I compare this a lot to Watergate, because they're very similar to Watergate. And if you remember, just to refresh your memory, the break-in at the Watergate happened a little less than a year before the election. So the Watergate break-in happens, Woodward and Bernstein begin following the story, and then they really have nothing concrete. The election comes up, Nixon wins in a landslide, 48 states I believe he won, maybe 49. It was a landslide victory, at which point a lot of people told Woodward and Bernstein, they said, well, there goes your Watergate story. He just won a 48 state landslide, so I guess that puts your story to bed. Now, there had been a lot of lull period as Woodward and Bernstein continued to work on this story. And it took 2.5 years from the time that the break-in occurred. Then you had Nixon a little less than a year later being reelected in a landslide. Woodward and Bernstein continued to work the story, and it was 1.5 years after Nixon won in a landslide that the Woodward and Bernstein broke the story that the money that was paid to the Watergate burglars came directly from the campaign to re-elect, and it was only 5 men who controlled that fund who could have released the money. And that's what put them inside the White House, and that's what reinvigorated the entire story. And shortly after, Nixon was resigning. 22 of his top people, including his chief of staff, 2 attorneys general, and some other high-powered people, were going to prison. So that's why we have to stay on the story, because, again, I think there are people who have information, who know a lot more. I think that they're sitting back as well, waiting to see what comes out of the congressional hearings. If they don't like what they hear, maybe that will motivate them to come out and drop some more information. Possibly, we'll learn something in the civil suit from Mr. Gubarev, unless he settles out of court. And if not, the final fallback would be Trump himself filing the civil suit, in which case he would not settle out of court, and he would try to get the answers to the questions that we just asked. The really, really important ones being who passed that dossier over to BuzzFeed. That's a very, very important question, because that will identify the center, the ringleader, really, the person from the intelligence community. And then, of course, you can work yourself outward from there, and you'll see how big this thing goes. Because remember, the question that we're asking now is no longer, was there surveillance? We now know there was surveillance. The only question now is, was it political? And finding out who leaked that dossier to BuzzFeed will answer that question. So anyway, that's where we are on TowerGate today, day 59, May the 1st, 2017, Monday. One other issue I want to touch on before I get off here is watching the French elections. They come up again. The final vote will be, I think, on the 8th, which I guess is this coming Sunday, or the 7th. I think it's Sunday, whatever date that is. And very interesting, if you're keeping up with that, it's very interesting. Marine Le Pen is making ground. Remember, after the last election runoff thing, and starting the very next day, they were saying that Le Pen had no chance, that Macron was going to win by 20, 25 points. Well, she's now closed the gap. And it has a lot to do with 2 specific things. Number one, Macron has made some huge mistakes, and now there's a scandal about his wife. And that's a whole shady deal between him and his wife anyway. But he's made some big political blunders in the past week. Also, the biggest factor is that Mélenchon, the guy who came in third and got almost 20%, was expected to come out and endorse Macron. But he has not. In fact, he came out and did a press conference where he said he doesn't like either of them. He's not going to take a side either way. He's not going to tell his supporters, of which are almost 20%. He is not going to tell them which way they should vote. Now, this has infuriated the establishment, because they assumed that that's how they would close the deal, is that Mélenchon would come out and say, well, I think I want to tell my supporters they should get behind Macron. But now he's turned the tables on them for whatever reason. He's turned the tables. He's saying he's not going to endorse anybody. He's not going to tell his voters where to go. He's going to let them make that decision for themselves. And that has really been a major factor in why she's moving. Now, there's a couple different polls I looked at. Just today, a Reuters poll came out. And, of course, we know what Reuters is all about. And they're still showing Macron 61 39 over Le Pen, 61-39. Still a pretty big gap, over 20 points. But you have this pollster who I believe is in England. I think he's in England. I think he's out of the UK. He called the Brexit almost within 2 points of the Brexit. Everyone else had Brexit being losing, but Brexit won. And this is one of the few people that got that right. And he came out and did I believe it was a TV interview where he said that he believes Le Pen could very well win. And he says the reason is because he's done these. Now he does kind of a mathematical analysis is kind of how he works. And he has all these other factors he plugs in. And he says according to the same mathematical analysis that he used to predict the Brexit vote, he's using here with Le Pen versus Macron. And he says that Le Pen, a big factor is going to be a lot like what we saw here in the United States and in Brexit is turnout. And he says that if Le Pen gets 90% turnout and Macron only gets 70% turnout, she wins by a hair, very close margin. If she gets 90% of her people out and he only gets 70, she wins in a very, very close race. And that could very well happen because there's not a lot of people that love Macron. He's kind of like the Hillary Clinton. He's got about 20 to 25%, maybe 30% solid. But the rest of his support is very soft. Le Pen, her support is solid. I mean, if you like Le Pen, you love Le Pen. There's not a lot of soft support for her. People who like Le Pen love her. So she can count on her base to come out probably at somewhere in the 90% or better range. Then with Mélenchon coming out and staying out of it and not endorsing Macron, she's likely to pull some of those people. And so this is what is setting up. So this last week before the vote is going to be really important. Macron has made a couple of major mistakes. And he's a pretty inexperienced politician, and that's showing up. It's hurting him. Whereas Le Pen is a very experienced politician. And so, and another thing you can see, it's very similar to the Trump versus Clinton thing where you saw where Donald Trump was having these huge rallies 2-3 times a day in the last 2 weeks of the campaign, drawing tens of thousands of people, while Hillary Clinton could barely fill a high school gymnasium, even if she brought movie stars and rap stars and everyone else along with her. With the media fully on her side, she just couldn't generate much enthusiasm. Well, the same thing is happening with the Macron-Le Pen. Le Pen is drawing huge crowds, very passionate supporters. Macron is having difficulty finding much passion and finding very many people to come out. He's not able to fill large halls. He's now trying to go out amongst the people and do that kind of thing, but he's just not a very good. He's not a very good politician. Not that type of politics is not what he's good at. So it's not serving him well, and he's not used to. He's gaffe prone. He's kind of like a Joe Biden. He's gaffe prone because experienced politicians learn how to answer questions without saying things that can be turned on them or things that sound stupid. And that's what a professional politician is able to do compared to an amateur. And you're seeing that Macron, his amateurish abilities are starting to take effect, whereas Le Pen is a skilled politician. So 7 days is a long time in a race like this. There's another poll that has Le Pen, and this is a poll in France, and this has Le Pen closing the gap to within 5 points. So the polls are all over the place, just like they were here in the U.S. and also in the Brexit vote. So we are going to see in about a week how that turns out. If Le Pen wins, this will be unbelievably epic because it will probably be the beginning of the end for the EU, which I think is already something that's going to happen. It's just going to happen much quicker with Le Pen because that you have the 4 Baltic countries that are now having issues. Poland is having issues. There's more and more countries that are wavering on staying in the EU, and if Le Pen wins, this is going to, I think, open the floodgates, and a lot of people are going to see that, okay, this is the end of the EU. We got 2 ways to get out of this thing. We can either get out now and do it clean, or we can get out when it's getting ugly, when the whole thing's collapsing and it's chaotic. So I think that this could have a major effect. This is a very important election to watch. It could actually have greater consequences on a global scale than even Trump or Brexit. So we'll just keep watching this very carefully. And of course, tomorrow we'll see. I don't know that we're going to learn much tomorrow about the Comey testimony. It's behind closed doors. I don't expect that we'll learn very much, but we'll continue to follow the story. So that's TowerGate today, day 59, May the 1st, 2017. We'll be back tomorrow. You all take care. Oh, thank you, everyone. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for sharing the videos, commenting. Really appreciate all of you. You guys take care and have a good day. Bye.